Hello, welcome to Indie Tutorials. My name is Guillermo and I would like to thank the patrons supporting this channel. Let's start by selecting our hero prefab, and then let's make a duplicate of the Animator controller, because if we were to update Manimal, I wouldn't like to lose my changes. So let's select or click on the Animator controller. It will be ping where it's stored, and let's Ctrl D to make a duplicate, and let's F2 to rename it, and just make any name that you liked. I will keep version 2, just to remind that we are on version 2 of the actually this is the Animal Controller of version 2. So I will put those this one in the Animator folder I made already, and after doing that I can go back to my prefab and assign the duplicated Animator controller. There we go. Now what we are going to do is to create custom modes to use in our abilities from ORK Framework turn-based battle. So we are going to create a couple of at least 3 modes. I already imported some animations from Mixamo. So for example, this victory animation that we can see here. Yeah, I won! And we have this cast magic, so we are going to implement those. And perhaps this defeat or buffer one. Wow. Okay. Anyway, so I will store this here. It doesn't matter. I mean, for the purpose of the tutorial. So let's go to right-click, create, up to the mod menu. Select Malbers Animations, then ID, and then mode. So let's create the first mode, and this one is going to be the cast. Let's call it cast spell. And it is important to assign an ID. So before doing that, let's analyze the prefab itself. So we have our prefab, scroll all the way down, and we have in the modes section in the Animal Controller component several modes already, and all of them have an ID already added to them. So we can see the ID 47153. Because I could not find in the documentation the already used IDs, we are just going to bump our custom modes to something like, let's say, the this cast spell to be ID 77. Let's make another one. So the Malbers ID mode, and let's rename this one to victory. And let's select here the ID to be 99 in this case, why not? Display name is victory, cast spell, that's okay. And let's create another ID mode, and this one is going to be the defeat mode, and let's add an ID here, let's say 88. So we have 77, 88 and 99. Okay, the next step will be to add these modes to our hero prefab. So let me collapse a little bit here. Component selector, input. Here in the animal component we are already in the mode section, so we need to add a new entry here, and let's select our custom modes. So I will select the cast spell, and you can see already detected the ID, and then there is this priority column here. Right now is set to 0. It doesn't, we were going to check on that later on. And let's add the other one, which is the defeat, and one more for victory. Now each mode can have actions added to them. Let me see. Yes, so we are in the general tab. We have, well, no action but abilities in case you need it, but I will leave it as they are right now. I'm not going to mess with this. And importantly to remember, down below for each mode is this combined index. So for this 77 we are going to have a combined index of 77001, and this 001, or the 1 number at the last, means the index of the ability. In this case we don't have any ability, but the index for the default one here is 1. This is where this number coming from. Okay, for the defeat mode we have, if we expand again abilities, general settings, we have this combined index, and this we need to remember those because we need to add those in the Animator controller. Okay, so let's continue by adding or opening the Animator controller. As you may guess, we need to add our modes into the mode layer. So let me make more room here for you to see. And I tested, and I think I will add my modes here in this action substate machine. So let's double click that one, because here we can see that we have, for example, open chest, vault, slide, and it's easy to configure our custom modes inside this one. Alright, so let's go to our animations and let's select this cast magic, and I will drag this animation clip into the Animator controller. Then in the here inspector panel here, I will rename this animation to cast spell, so it will match the mode ID or the mode we created. It is important though also to add a mode behavior to this animation clip. So let's create here mode behavior, and it's going to ask for the mode ID again. So let's select the mode, in this case is cast spell. Because we are using just one animation, this behavior will track when we enter this animation and when we exit the animation itself. If you wanted to have like a start casting and a stop casting, you could create a submachine and then assign a mode behavior for the start of the casting and another mode behavior for the exit of this casting. So that way the animal controller will know when the animation is starting and when it's finishing. Next, for the any state, we need to create a transition to our cast animation, and if we click in the transition itself, then what we need to do here, of course, is to tell when we need to start our animation. So in the conditions section, let's add 2 entries. The first one is going to be the mode parameter, and it needs to be equals to the ID, the composed ID we had. So if we remember, because I don't, I will go to the cast spell. I know it's 77, so in this case I will add here 77001. The next parameter is going to be the mode status, and this one is need to be equals to 0. And lastly, when the animation finishes, it needs to go to the exit route. So let's add a new transition, and actually here we need a couple of them. It's mandatory for the animal controller, so let's add another one. And now let's select the first transition here, the cast exit, and let's rename it to interrupted. And of course it doesn't have an exit time, so let's uncheck has exit time. And in this case the condition we need to add is that the mode status is going to be equals to -2. There we go. Now the second transition, this one is going to be named exit, and for this one it is okay to leave the has exit time. So I just type or press enter to get to make the change here. Okay. Now we need to repeat the process for the other 2 modes, so I will speed up the video. Okay, now that we have created the animation clips in the Animator controller, it is time to start setting up the battle system. So let me make more room here. We can see things. So here in the prefab, if you wanted to call these modes from the standard animal controller, you just need to add some custom inputs here, but we are going to be doing that from ORK Framework at the end, so just to remind you that you can do that as well. Because the battle system itself is not related to the implementation of animal controller, I would expect you to have already your turn-based battle set up, either following the tutorials, which is something I did actually. So I went to the page, the web page of ORK Framework, and followed from the battle menu, prepare for battle, turn-based setup, following the 3D RPG playground tutorial demo. So I just moved these schematics from this tutorial, and I fixed any lost reference afterwards, but it was just drag and drop this schematic already made in the tutorial to avoid having to make them from scratch. Also this move UI schematics to have the nice movement of the battle menus. So just drag them from the tutorial project actually to speed up things, as well for the calculations. And yeah, so we are here in the field battles. This is where we were having this real-time battle, so I just disabled this component and added a new one, battle component, and just rename it to turn-based battle. Nothing much to it. Important here is in the combatant spawner to change the battle component to use in this case. And yeah, nothing else I change here actually. It's just adding this new component, which you could reuse the previous one. Of course, I just bump up the sphere collider just to have the area in which the battle will start a little bit larger, like so. And if we were to open now the editor, changes I had to do, you can see that I am on 2.8 version of Machinum and 3.7 of ORK Framework. So in the UI settings, I already added all the prefabs following the documentation and also my own tutorials that I was making. I added these layers, not manually again, those are like scriptable assets, so I just drag it up into the GameSlop data folder and fix any missing references. As well for the game state, there are some states that we need in the start event, battle start and battle end, so I added those from the tutorial. I also copy the UI boxes from the tutorial, and you can see here, if we go back to GameSlop, the data folder, there are assets, so I just drag those here and replace the one I had and fix any broken references, just to speed up a little bit the setup. And even by doing that, it took a lot of time. So here is our UI box blue battle menu. I already added the cursor movement like we saw in the UI tutorials. Then in the battle menu, we are assigning this battle. I change here in the title content to, instead of having the player name, the commands, the word commands, like let's say in Final Fantasy VII, something like that. Let me see the battle settings. Yeah, I don't think I added here in the battle itself. The battle menu is following the tutorial, so we have the options for the abilities, escape, do nothing, and so on and so forth. So this is pretty much core turn-based battle system. Nothing to do especially with Animal Controller. Of course, we have the status values, also added agility, dexterity, because we need those for the turn-based formulas to choose who is going to start and how fast the selection of the turn is stated. Lastly, of course, in the abilities, we had previously the attack ability and the enemy attack ability, which were set up for real-time battles. So I changed a little bit of the settings here to make it available for turn-based. And of course here in the battle settings I change the default system to turn-based, and in the turn-based itself I added the battle start schematics that we had, battle end schematic and so on and so forth. I think I changed, no, yeah, I didn't change anything here. This is just the basic setup I follow from the documentation actually. Then in the battle spot, what I did actually also is to change the first member of the player group, the rotation and the position, because those, if you follow the tutorial, those are meant specifically for the geometry or the map, the scene you are working in the tutorial. So in this case I had to modify those to make the player and the enemy face each other properly. Battle text, I don't think I make any changes. And in the target settings, what I did is to add this cursor to point to the target enemy or the target selected combatant in the head. So yeah, in the next video we are going to continue, because I don't want to be this really long, to continue this setup and to do the animal controller setting up. Thank you for watching.